Brenda made some pumpkin muffins. These things are incredible. And I added extra frosting because I'm an adult and I can do whatever I want. These things are awesome. Should have these every day. Brenda should get up and make these every day. All right, before we get into this next episode, I'm gonna keep stuff in my face, but we have just a tiny bit of business to talk about. I've had a whole lot of people ask me about this shirt. Will Sail for Tacos. Don't worry, they're coming. Just be patient. We're actually working on it right now, but internet access for us, it's a little tough at times, but these should be available in a couple of weeks. So hang tight, stay tuned. They'll be ready soon. But it's true, I will sail for tacos. All right, and I'll eat these muffins because they're amazing with extra frosting. See you later. All right, just about ready to get out of here. Today we're gonna head from Huatulco north up the coast to Acapulco. This should be about a 2-day passage, and it should be better than the last one. Mainly because we're starting out with wind and swell on the stern, which is gonna be great. If you've never been sailing offshore with a nice gentle breeze and a gentle swell right behind you, it's the stuff of magic. In our last episode, we hit an unmarked rock in Huatulco, and even now, I'm still not quite over it. But this time around, we leave that rock and Huatulco behind and head out for a couple of days at sea. Hi, sailor.
Hi. It's lunchtime.
You're already eating our passage food.
We're 10 minutes out. I mean, it's officially passage.
And after lunch, you guessed it, it was time to get serious.
Time to catch some fish. Uh-oh, wind shift. Did you eat that?
I'd eat it. Would you?
No, but I'm hoping a fish will. Got something. That'd be great. Thanks to Robbie. Let's see if this works.
And while Brenda was working on catching us some fish, I was working on catching Jason and Jen. They were a couple of miles ahead of us, and me and our racing stripe don't like to be in second place. Well, pretty well settled in at this point. Been out for a handful of hours, I guess. And our light, leisurely little sail, it's been pretty lively. Got about 25 knots on the stern, about a 6-foot chop, but we're doing about 7 knots, which for this boat going downwind, even with a racing stripe, is pretty fast. We passed Jason and Jen, I don't know, a couple of hours ago. They're way back in the distance. See you guys. But they're cruising along too. They just got their pulled out jib and their wind vane's working, so they don't have to hand steer. And we did lose a big fish. A huge one! Some things are just better off meant to be left in the sea. So, it left us with a bit of jewelry hanging in its lip. Kind of a bummer, but that's the way it goes. We got a day and a half to go. Pretty good sailing so far.
Caught a baby fish. Going back. There's a fish in this ocean. I think he had it in his finger.
Got a fish stick.
Got a fish stick. Oh, I'll get him off.
And the next morning, after a pretty great night of sailing, just as the sun came up, the wind died, fired up the motor, and my sleep shift got cut just a little bit short.
I got a fish. It's your sleep shift, and we got a fish.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wake up, let's catch a fish.
That's right. The fun shouldn't stop. Fun doesn't stop on this boat.
You got a fish and we're surrounded by dolphins.
I know.
Now what?
Caught another fish. Whoa.
Whoa, hold on. Who loves fishing?
Do you love fishing? I love fishing.
It's a feisty one.
I missed that one. It's not the same. What is it?
Well, this morning, my sleep shift ended to the cries of fish. But we got some. Got some in the freezer. Can't beat that. This couple of days at sea may go down in the books, and I don't want to jinx ourselves here, but it may go down in the books as one of the easiest couple of days at sea ever. But from the get-go, it was pretty fast, pretty comfortable for the amount of breeze. It was just directly on the stern. But last night, we had about 12 knots on the beam with some flat seas, no moon, but a clear, bright, starry night. You can't beat it. Pretty amazing, really. But it was pretty shifty all night, so the track on our chart plotter, it looks like we may have been drunken sailors. A little squirrely. But pretty fun. For the next 24 hours or so, it's going to be a pretty mixed bag of sailing and motoring, just depending on how the wind fills in. At the moment, it's pretty light. We only got about 3 knots, so we're motoring. But it should in the next couple hours fill in. That's it. Onward. Another 24 hours or so, and then we'll be in Acapulco. After a couple of hours of listening to the motor, a nice gentle breeze filled in, and we were back to sailing. And with that nice and easy, laid-back bit of sailing, it came with some relentless sun. So Brenda, she kept pretty busy keeping us in the shade. And that nice and easy, laid-back bit of sailing, well, it sort of changed, and eventually became an upwind bash that made for a pretty rough night. But the next morning, just as the sun was coming up, the lights of Acapulco, they were off in the distance, and that pretty rough night, it would soon be over. After a couple of days at sea, we made it to this place and quickly got caught up on some needed sleep. Well, we made it to Acapulco, but I think I spoke a little too soon yesterday because the last 16 hours or so, it was a little rough. Turned out to not be the easiest passage on record, but we did make it. We got here just as the sun came up and dropped the hook, took a nap for a little bit, and we're still waiting for Jason and Jen. I think they're a handful of hours out still, so they'll be here pretty soon. But Acapulco, I think, is just going to be a short little stop for us. We don't have any real plans on hanging out here very long, mainly because a little farther north, we've got a bunch of friends that are going to be there. So we're probably just going to catch up on a little sleep and make a push to get going north. But at least we made it. And it was a fairly easy 2 days at sea. Last half, not so much. But a fairly easy 2 days. See you later. And not too much behind us, there was Jason and Jen. And yes, they were catching up on some sleep too. But that's about it for this episode. Join us next time as we head farther north.